Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker. Welcome to the show, y'all. Listen to me, y'all. I'm going to start doing this series of shows called Life in the Streets, right? Because a lot of the shows that I do, most of the shows I do, actually, I talk about, what people are doing in prison, right? And I'm going to add a little flavor to that, you know what I'm saying, and start talking about some shows about what these individuals that I know, you know what I'm saying, were doing before they came to prison. And this show that I'm going to be doing today is about these two guys that I know. Both of them got 50-year sentences. They charge partners. They've been in here for a long time. They got 50 years, y'all, at 85%. But let me talk about that. Let me talk about that for a second, right? These two guys, right, they were out there on the streets doing their thing, right? And minding their business, but they were like were doing their own thing. I'm not gonna say minding their business because they were stick-up kids, and to be a stick-up kid, you gotta be in everybody else's business. You understand what I'm saying? Y'all know what I'm talking about. But they were not the types of dudes that were cut or built like that. They grew up in a neighborhood that's all they saw, according to them. Now, I understand and I know those neighborhoods, right? But I also know in those neighborhoods, a lot of people don't turn to that. In fact, the majority of people don't turn to that. Now, you have those exceptional people that come out of those areas, maybe in the sports or music or whatever the case may be, and those are the ones that get the shine. Those are the ones that get the TV spots and everybody's talking about them and everybody wants to emulate them and be like them, right? But the majority of the people that work in these neighborhoods, hardworking people that are going to work every day, they might be behind on their bills, they might drink, they might smoke, they might do this and might do that, but they get up and they go to work every day, and they work overtimes in a lot of situations. They're never able to get over the hump, right? Now, so we need to be a little bit more clear when we're talking about working class people that just might be having a hard time financially getting it together, and they can go their whole lives like that. These two individuals, they were 18 years old. They didn't want to go through that. They saw their parents go through that and all this and that. And so they weren't on that. They're like, nah, we're going to get it in the streets. Because it was quicker and it was faster. And they did a couple of things. They hit a couple of licks and they got their bread. Right? But see, when you're in the streets and you're doing what you do, right, a lot of people, when you're making these plans, you don't plan on failing. Nobody plans on failing, man. And what they're going to do if they fail. And how we're going to proceed with this. Because the truth of the matter is, until you fail, you can't calculate how it's going to go down. You can't calculate. I don't care how many TV shows you see. I don't care how many people you say that you know in the streets that say they're going to keep it solid. There's no way you can account for how that individual that's next to you is going to act, or vice versa, until it happens. You can't account for how the police are going to come out for you and treat you. It's like when you're practicing on basketball games or football games. When you're on a basketball team or football team, it's one thing. The speed of the game is different in practice, right? It could be even softball. The speed of the game is different when you're in practice. But when the actual game is going on, it's at a faster pace. Why? Because the people that you're playing against are not your teammates. And some of them are better than you. They're faster than you. They're smarter than you. So they play at a different level, and that causes you to have to put your game face on and step it up a little bit. It becomes a little faster, a little bit more intense. And that's how the streets are. That's how the streets are. So these two dudes, right, they heard about this guy that had this bread, right? They knew him in the neighborhood and whatnot, but they heard about this guy. He had this bread. And so they wanted it. So when they pulled up on him to get this money, he wasn't going, right? He was one of these dudes that he's stunted in the streets too, right? And when I say stunned in the streets, come on now. A lot of these guys, just because you jump off the porch at a young age, don't mean that you a street dude. You understand? You got to learn all of that kind of stuff. And these guys, all of these guys were 18. The dude that they ended up the dude that they got the case for, he was like 20. You feel what I'm saying? But he didn't want to kill them no more than they wanted to kill him. But this is what happened, right? And this is real stuff right here, right? Because I was talking to them about it, man, and this is what they said. When they pulled up on dude, they told dude, drop it off. He said, I'm not doing none of that, man. And they called him by their name because they were all cool. They were all cool. He said, man, I'm not doing that. He said, man, y'all gonna have to take it. So he see that they strapped. They see that he's strapped. It's a standoff. What they gonna do? Now, all of a sudden, let me tell you something what happens to a person on that mental level, right? You got these two individuals that done bump down on dude, right? He's looking at them. They're looking at him. And as my son say, they're looking at each other, right? Everybody's staring at each other, and nobody else is around. You know, when you pulling a jack move like that, ain't nobody else around. But what they're thinking, the two dudes that did the robbery, what they're thinking in their head, our reputation in the streets. If it gets out that we don't take care of our business, then ain't nobody gonna take us serious no more. And what that did, that interfered with their bread. So that made them more likely to do what? Up the gun. And when they upped it, listen to me, I'm gonna show you how not street they are. And this is coming out of their own mouths. I'm telling y'all now, because I want you to understand to leave these streets alone. When they upped the gun, they ran the other way, pointing the gun back. They hit him, dropped him. I'm talking about, they didn't even know until after they got arrested that one of the bullets hit him dead center in the chest and then in the head, right in the middle of his forehead. The man died like that. And they kept running. Didn't get a dime. Shots were heard in the neighborhood. Somebody called the police. When the police got there, they found him laying dead in the streets, right? Pockets full of money. They kept it moving. Somebody always sees, so somebody saw them and somebody told who it was that was out there that they thought was out there. When they bumped down on them, they hadn't even gotten rid of the guns. They caught them because their names had been ringing in the neighborhood anyway. And I'm going to tell you something. When you out there in the streets and you doing all these things and everybody else is doing their thing, right? You know what I'm saying? The ones that's causing a disruption to the economy is the ones that everybody is willing to tell on. They're less willing to tell on dope boys because they're adding to the economy. You understand what I'm saying? The ones that usually tell on dope boys is other people that don't call dope cases or the people that are being affected by it. You understand what I'm saying? The families that can't let their kids play out on the corner and so on and so forth, right? So, but when you a robber, don't nobody want no robber out there. The ones in the streets don't want you out there because you are a threat to them. So yeah, their names got gave up and your names will get given up too. You listen to what I'm trying to tell you now. Don't play games with your mind and fool yourself into believing anything other than that. So they get popped. They got the guns. They arrest them. They run ballistics. It's a match. Now, both of them are in the tank, in the jail, right? But, see, they had watched a lot of movies to know how this go. Don't say nothing. No, now they not taking into account. They got the gun. They got the hand fingerprints on the gun. The guns match the bullets that's coming out the body. You see what I'm saying? They're not taking that to account, right? Because they ain't understanding how the law works. That's enough evidence right there with a witness that said that they saw them running from the scene. You feel what I'm saying? So they both in the jail. They got them on the same floor. And both of them are telling each other, man, don't say nothing. We're not saying nothing. They can't prove it. Wasn't nobody there. Yeah, they caught you with the gun. They can prove something. But this is what they were telling me. This is how their minds were working. And I'm going to speed it up. They went to court. 2 or 3 times, kept trying to put it off, kept firing their lawyers. Y'all know what I'm saying. Because a lot of dudes get these lawyers and the lawyer tell them what the real deal is. They don't like that. They fire them. They go in the courtroom trying to delay the trial, ask the judge to give them another lawyer. The judge does that because he wants this to be a fair proceeding. He don't want this thing overturned on appeal. So he's being way more accommodating to them than he needs to be. Finally, they get a lawyer that says, look, we can fight him at trial, but if you lose, you looking at this amount of time. And he told him the whole skinny. But here's what happens to you in the jail, y'all. Listen to me. They're in the county jail. Now, when you're in the county jail, you're cut off from everybody else, right? Other than the phone and visits. You see what I'm saying? And looking out the window. If you happen to be in a county jail where you can look out the window and see, because a lot of county jails are uptown. You feel what I'm saying? Or in the middle of the town or whatever. And you can still see cars riding by and stuff like that, right? Now, that is the only contact you're going to have to the outside world. And when you're in this environment right here, y'all, I'm telling you, it gives you a false sense of reality. You start to tell yourself all kinds of stuff that's not real, not true. Convincing yourself. And then I'm going to tell you another thing that happens to you in here. You'll run into somebody that's going to hit you with that Bible. Or they're going to hit you with the Quran, right? And what happens to you, don't get me wrong, right? I'm a believer myself, right? But here's the thing that people don't understand. God is a God of justice and mercy. You understand? Meaning you're going to be held accountable for what you do. You feel me? You're going to be held accountable for what you do. But the Most High going to be there with you to get you through those consequences that's coming for you, right? You feel what I'm saying? But see, a lot of people think they can pray their way out of doing wrong. Talk to me, Joe. Say it, y'all. Talk to me. You have to account for what you do. And when you go to jail and you know you've done something, right? And you get to praying and asking the Most High to bring you out of it. I'm not saying these things can't happen. God do what he want to do. But I'm going to tell y'all, what I've seen for the most part is that you hit. You might get a little time, might get a lot of time. But see, what happens, your mind gets so muddled that any little thing that happens, you attribute that to God. Oh, they put the trial off. They ain't got nothing. God working, y'all. God working. That's what they come in the power. God working. And you'll see them. You'll see them. They're going around the pot and they're saying all these things, right? And don't get me wrong. God is working. God is working. You understand what I'm saying? But see, sometimes it takes time for what you want to happen to happen. So they finally end up in the courtroom. They go to trial. They're sitting there. One of the people that called the police, because they had 2 or 3 people to call 911. One of the people that called gets on the stand and say, yeah, those are the 2 guys that I saw standing in front of the guy, and they ran away and they shot at this other man. And the other man fell down, and that was it. And I called 911. You had 3 people testify to that. Then the DA gets up and he says, okay, here's the gun. He said, we got the fingerprints off the gun. The ballistics test matched the bullets that were retrieved from the victim's body. All of this evidence. Now, you got these people sitting on the jury that live in this neighborhood. Some do, some don't, right? And they're all looking at them. It didn't take them long at all. They came back with a guilty verdict. Now, when they go back to the jail, on their way back to the jail, actually, both of them huffing and puffing. They pissed off. Mad at the lawyer, mad at the judge, mad at everybody but themselves. Because the judge just handed them down a 50-year sentence at 85%. Y'all can do the math. Y'all can do the math, man. That 40-some years they got to do, man. That's a tight fight with a short pipe. Tight fight with a short pipe. Now check this out. Let me tell you something. I ran into these 2 guys at another prison, right? This was like after about, I think, 10 or 12 years on the sentence that they had done. We happened to be sat around, I was still smoking back then, smoking weed. I ain't no smoking cigarettes, y'all. I was still smoking back then, so we sitting around talking and whatnot and all this and that, right? And the conversation came up about, keeping their mouth shut because the DA offered them a deal. See, let me tell you that. The DA offered them a deal. He would have gave them 25 if they'd have pleaded guilty. But the 25 was still going to be at 85, but it would have been half of what they got if they went to trial. See what I'm saying? It would have been half of that, right? Because here's the thing. Because they had a couple of charges, the gun charge, the murder, which they deemed it to be, I forget how they put it, but anyway, long story short, they ended up with a lot of time. They could have ended up with less. And then one of the dudes was talking, and he said, look, they offered me the opportunity to rap on my brother, right here. And I said, I ain't doing it. I'm not going to do it. We're going to have to deal with this. They didn't prove it nothing. And then when they proved it, he said I felt sick in my stomach because he said I had a way out. And then the other brother, he said they offered him a deal too. Now, they both had known this. This is just a conversation they were having with me, right? So I asked him, I said, if you had it to do all over again, what would you do? And by this time, they both had settled into doing their time and all this thing. They both looked at each other and said, man, I'd have told on his ass. Now, the both of them said that almost simultaneously, right? In different words. You know, one brother said, I would have took the deal. The other dude said, I would have testified against it, right? But basically what they're saying is both of them would have told on each other to try to get out of this. And I'm like, why would you do that? What about the code? What about this? What about that? And then they said they didn't think about how this was going to affect them. They didn't think about all the nights that they would be in the bed thinking about, because they knew this guy that they killed. And I don't think that's so relevant to the fact that you kill somebody. You see what I'm saying? Whether you know him or not, I'm telling you now, it's going to keep you up at night. And if it don't keep you up at night, you're a sociopath. I'm just keeping it real. Now, that don't mean you can't get to that point to move on, because see, that's where God comes in. You feel what I'm saying? Where God's grace will come in and he'll help you deal with that so you can move beyond that and become a new person. You feel what I'm saying? So that it don't keep you up at night. But that's a whole process of forgiving yourself and letting the Most High take over and so on and so forth. You see what I mean? But they weren't there yet. They were not there yet. And this life in the streets thing, where they were doing what they were doing and getting what they were getting, it all looked good until they had to lay down with a 50-year sentence. And see, when you lay down with a 50-year sentence, it's not like laying down with a woman. Because a 50-year sentence is cold, greedy, want all the cover. You feel what I'm saying? It wants everything that you got. And over time, your back and your knees and everything starts to ache. Everything starts to ache. And you start to live in that world of regret. Wishing you would have done this and wishing you would have done that. Think about this now. Because I want y'all to really absorb what it is that I'm trying to say. Because I've been in prison for 35 years. 35 years. And it's not been easy. Of course, I've done a lot of things and my time moves fast. But 35 years is 35 years. I've missed everything. Everything. See, there's no point in saying, like, I missed weddings, funerals. There ain't no point in naming the individual things. I might as well just say, I missed everything. And that's what you need to understand. But another reason that I wanted to share this story with you, I wanted you to understand how your mind will play tricks on you. Because that's what happens. Your mind will play tricks on you. And everybody in here, their minds play trick on them. And at some point, we get to that point to where we start to lie to ourselves and tell ourselves all kinds of nonsense because we can't make it otherwise. We can't make it otherwise. It's like being trapped in mud. It's like being trapped in mud up to your knees, and no matter how high you raise your leg up to try to get out of it, you still got to put that leg back down in the mud to try to push and try to take inch forward. And it ain't no inching forward, because every two steps you take forward, you got somebody in here that's going to push you 3 steps back. And that's what you face when you deal with this. Now, these two individuals, they're past the halfway mark now. And they look it. And when I said, give me something that I could say to the people that listen to my show. What would you tell them? You know what I'm saying? If you could, what would you say to them? And both of them told me, don't do it. You might think that it's a solution to your problem. You might think that it's going to create a better life for you. It is not. It will not. Think about that. All it's going to give you is a whole lot of years in the penitentiary. Remember that, y'all. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.